Welcome to Board Game Casual. In this video, we're talking about my top 5 board game expansions sitting unopened on my shelf of shame that I'm most eager to get played in 2025. Now, if you're interested in seeing the top 5 unopened board games that I'm most excited to play in 2025, be sure to check that video out on the channel as well. I've got the link down in the description. For those who've seen that video, you've heard me talk a bit about how I find it a little difficult to get expansions to the table, especially when there are new games to be played, or how often I find myself in situations where I'm teaching a game to new players, and it's just easier to start with the base game versus teaching a game while trying to learn an expansion at the same time. As a result, I've really tried to cut back and be very selective about the expansions that I buy. And it's also why this year I've separated the board games and top expansions I want to play into 2 separate lists. I'm hoping to set myself up for success this year after coming up short in the games I set out to play last year in 2024. This leads me to my next caveat. While I'm calling this a top 5, in reality, this is really a top 2 plus 3 stretch goals. Let's get into it. Before we get into the list, today's video is brought to you by the good folks over at Harbor Loot. Harbor Loot is a company founded by passionate gamers that make awesome board game accessories like dice, premium dice trays, dice shaker cups, and more. You can check out all they have to offer at harborloot.com and save 5% on your entire order with coupon code BOARDGAMECASUAL. Rather than going in countdown order, we're just going to start from the top. The board game expansion I'm most excited to play in 2025 is the Expedition Leaders expansion to Lost Ruins of Arnak. I love Lost Ruins of Arnak. It's one of my favorite games. The Expedition Leaders expansion introduces different player characters, each with their own unique player boards and abilities. What I'm most interested in, however, is that it introduces some new cards and a couple of new research track boards that you just place on top of the research track on the game board. I'm really excited to have a little more variation from game to game rather than always climbing up the same research track. I got close trying to teach this one last year when I was introducing Lost Ruins of Arnak to some friends, but in the end it just seemed too difficult to teach the whole base game plus these new individual characters. But now that my friends are familiar with Arnak and knowing how much they liked it, I'm going to push to get it played with the Expedition Leaders expansion the next time they're in town. And the second expansion I'm most excited to play this year is the Enchanted Forest expansion for Runestones. This is a carryover from last year's list that I was unable to get played. Runestones is one of my favorite deck builders. I think this game is fantastic and flew under a lot of people's radars. The one thing I wish it had was a little more variety in the runestone abilities. And that was my main reason for picking up the Enchanted Forest expansion. Now it appears to have an additional sideboard module as well, which I'm hoping doesn't make the game feel too clunky, but I'm really excited to check it out and see what it's like. I'm hoping to try this one out with those same friends I mentioned earlier. I really want to introduce them to runestones, and I think unlike the Arnak expansion, I can probably teach the game and the expansion to runestones at the same time. Okay, so these are my top 2 board game expansions that I really want to set out and play this year. If these get played, I'll consider it a success, but I've also got a few other expansions as stretch goals for the year. The first stretch goal is the Missing Expedition expansion to Lost Ruins of Arnak. This is the second expansion for that game. I got this one as a gift, and honestly, I don't know that much about it, being that I still have yet to learn and play the Expedition Leaders expansion. I know that in addition to adding more stuff, it also has an optional campaign mode of play. If you've played this one, let me know what you think. Especially if you think it makes sense to dive into the Expedition Leaders and the Lost Expedition expansions together in one fell swoop, or if it's better to learn one at a time. The second stretch goal is the Heavy Rain expansion to Heat, Pedal to the Metal, which I was gifted last year along with the base game. I've played Heat a few times now and I'm really liking it, but I still have yet to break into some of the other tracks and advanced rules in the base game. I'm kind of in this mode where I keep teaching Heat to people for the first time. So as my friends become more familiar with the game and eager to play it again, I'm hoping we can dive into more of the advanced stuff along with the Heavy Rain expansion. And finally, the third stretch goal is the other carryover from last year's list, the Hall of Heroes expansion to Raiders of the North Sea. I certainly want to try this one out, especially since I hear it's considered a must-have for playing Raiders of the North Sea. So hopefully the next time we're in the mood for some worker placement, I'll be able to give Hall of Heroes a try. So there you have it, the top unplayed board game expansions I'm excited to get played in 2025. If you've played any of these, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And again, let me know if you think I should try jumping into the 2 Lost Ruins of Arnak expansions at the same time, or if I should flip the priority order in which to play first. Once again, be sure to check out my top 5 unopened board games that I'm excited to play in 2025 if you haven't already, or the videos of the games and expansions I set out to play last year in 2024. Thanks for watching, thank you for liking and subscribing, and I'll see you next time here on Board Game Casual.